Okay, so we are live here this afternoon with my Shakti Rise immersion with the great honor of interviewing Melissa Michaels. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you, Jeanie. It's my honor to be
Oh,
with you and to be in her presence.
oh, well, when I thought about women that really I wanted to interview, it was totally like, Melissa, I've got to see if Melissa will do this. So before I forget, I would just want to start with a little bit of your bio. So it's always, I think, nice for you to kind of just sink into all the beauty that you're creating on the planet as I read this. So Melissa Michaels creates movement-based cross-cultural community journeys focusing on life's major thresholds. As the founder and director of Surfing the Creative International, Melissa developed the first contemporary youth leadership rites of passage program rooted in dance. For 3 decades, her non-for-profit organization, Golden Bridge, has been engaged in the healing, initiating, educating, and mentoring of diverse young people and the adults who serve them around the world. The story of this work will soon be released in Melissa's forthcoming book, Youth on Fire. Oh my gosh. As a Fielding University Fellow, she is currently bringing Soma Source, the body of work she has developed, to numerous cross-boundary communities in Africa. Woo! That's something to take in. Yeah? So, the reason I wanted to interview you, well, for years I have known you in our kids community, our school community, but I've also known you as this amazing embodiment of a goddess on the planet and in Boulder, and certainly well known in our community for your beautiful work with dance. And it's something that I still have yet to really dive deep into dance with you. I have a dance background in college, in high school, and then, of course, I just dove deep into the yoga scene and have kind of been immersed in that for years. But movement has been something that I would call a creative expression for me that I don't know what I would do without. In the way that I understand the world is through movement. We were just speaking about how you might want to get up and just start talking from a movement perspective. And the feminine, when I think about the rise of consciousness on the planet, which is really my calling right now to bring collaborative voice to, is the movement of consciousness embodied, right? That in the many myths that I know from the Hindu traditions, the tantric traditions in particular, there's this notion that for thousands of years, the feminine disembodied. She left her body because she wasn't respected. She wasn't honored. She wasn't deeply held. And there is a notion that that embodiment is and has been, some say 100 years, has been coming back, that we are actually incarnating her again. I would love for you to speak to any and all of it. What does it mean to be embodied in the feminine? And you can get up and move.
I want to really honor you first. I just really want to say thank you for having the courage and the vision to bring these critical conversations into the collective consciousness, and to do so in such a humble way and multi-sensory, because it's here we are looking deep into each other's eyes across technology, and I'm not even in the same town as you today.
Right.
So I really want to honor what you've done from the inside out. That's something in your soul awoke through the body, and you've taken it all the way from your heart into your clear thinking, and now into not only your soul but the collective soul of these times. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I've just been listening. I think I've been listening and just rolling with it.
So in all of that is the answer to the question, what is embodied feminine energy on the planet right now. And there's so much to be said about it. And it really takes a very deep journey within to be able to get to a place where one can talk about it in an integrated way. And for so many of us back in the day, it wasn't like, wow, I want to do this thing that's going to help me get the new paradigm of ways of being and serving and living on the planet. We were just trying to survive. We were trying to figure out how to get inside any kind of cube of sanity. And for me, that's really how it all began. And, you know, all the sitting and meditating, all the talking and trying to sort things through, none of that was really helping me. And I was simply suffering, like that very earth that you speak about. And I really believe that each of us are a spark of her, a garden made up of her soil, each of us in our bodies. And I needed to figure out how to tend to the plot that my soul had been given to show up in and express itself through. And I was in so much pain. And really, it was only by getting extremely connected and present with those sensations of my own aliveness that were mostly pain at that time, not so much pleasure, that I began the journey of what we're calling embodiment. And it was really just out of my own longing for some peace, some sense of connection inside, and also a very, very profound longing for connection outside of myself, to not only the people around me, but to those that I really always sensed I was here to walk with, to be of service to, and to be in a reciprocal dynamic with. So the feminine, the embodiment, you know, to me, it's really just the answer to the questions of our times. This whole concept of connection with the most fine details, our cells and our organs and our blood and the tissue, and how energy shows up in a physical way, starting right here in our own sacred landscape of our bodies. And then it's about also getting connected to the incredible feeling life that moves with that and as a result of that. And, you know, so many of us are trying to heal our emotions or befriend our emotions. And there's this rich landscape underneath it that as we come into connection with ourselves at the level of senses and sensation, we can not only mobilize our energy, but we can also learn how to be in right relationship with this huge heart of the feminine, the heart of humanity, the heart of all life, our emotional body, and ultimately our capacity to love. And all that is part of the embodiment, the feminine, this new energy that the planet is longing to come into right relationship with, and not be separated from, and not be destroying, but be in creation with. And so as one makes that journey, and if one has the courage to really sit with the hard places and begin to find the dynamic interface and relationship between the heart and the body, there's this inevitable awakening of the mind and the clear thinking and the capacity to discern and articulate, which is what we're doing here, what this whole pre-verbal, vast, limitless landscape is all about. And of course, with that comes the birthing of what I think we're all longing for, which is our really unique vibrations as souls, as individuated souls, and now collective as a humanity. And so for me, the body is the vehicle where all of that can be accessed, transformed, awakened, linked up to the other parts, and aligned with this something that's even greater than all of that, which is the spiritual energy that runs through all of it, that doesn't differentiate us, actually unifies us completely. So rather than going out to try and find something, my path, and I think the path of the feminine, and I think the path of these times, is actually about going in. And going in a very different attitude than we've been going in. We're not talking about mining. We're not talking about going in and taking out for the good of somebody else's narcissistic or indulgent or addictive natures. It's actually about going in and befriending, going in and attuning to, going in and really making love with whatever is there, and serving it in such a way that everything keeps orienting towards life. Unless, of course, it is our time to die, and then we orient towards death. And that's a whole conversation that we can have. But my deepest dedication is really to life and to all the incredible facets of what being alive means, what being alive, what the possibility, the range of expression and experience can be in life. And my life has certainly given me the opportunity to really get to know a whole bunch of facets of what it is to be a human being on this planet at this time. And that curiosity and that devotion to discovering that has been what has kept me moving. And to learn how to meet it and be with it and assist it in its aliveness and its orientation towards ever greater aliveness. And to me, that means connection within, connection between us, connection with this almighty earth we stand upon, and connection with this incredible humanity all around us, and this life, this spiritual force that gives us breath, gives us each new day.
Oh, it's so articulate, it's so beautiful to just hear the words that come through you. I was really struck by how you started, which was, if I could reiterate, it was a breakthrough. It was through pain that you were called to find your expression in a way. And I think often I can relate to this because it's also been my pain, my hardship, my family's lineage hardship, the longing, the search, and the longing in the tantric wisdoms that I am so deeply immersed in is called Icha Shakti, right? It's the form of the goddess that is desire, of longing. And I feel so connected to that. It's like the longing for expression is so deep that it can transmute or transform pain, literally. And I feel like that's certainly been the catapult for me, has been through the doorway of pain, through the doorway of death, through the painful shame that I've had to deal with in family lineage, to break through, to find my joy through expression, through movement, through the articulation of my body and the joy of being in the body. And so I'm wondering if you would speak to that a little bit. I know that's sometimes it's a vulnerable place, and yet I think as the feminine is coming through, it's asking for vulnerability in a way that maybe we haven't been willing to speak in the past, because the masculine sort of holds things in a beautiful way, very contained for us, right? And even in the way that we speak or gesture to each other can be very, sort of held and very. I was thinking about when I was breastfeeding my children and going back east, and my sister looking at me like, "You're not going to do that here, are you?" And that held sort of container that society's had on us, I think, is really radically shifting. And certainly in Boulder, we're blessed with that more openness of really speaking how vulnerability can be a doorway to great freedom and great opening. And then when we share our vulnerability, I feel like everyone is able to open up and feel, oh my gosh, she's had that, I've had something too, and the floodgates open, right? And we feel more compassion and kindness and nurturing towards each other. So I'm just curious if you might share a little bit of that pain that was that breakthrough for you, perhaps.
Well, it's not a destination. It's not a one-time.
No, it's not. It recurs, doesn't it, over and over and over again?
Yeah.
Yes.
So many things I could say, Jeanie, but I
Yes.
think the thing I want to say is, it was always clear to me a couple things, that if I could stay present with whatever suffering I was experiencing inside myself, it would be the most efficient pathway through. That it wasn't going to linger, it wasn't going to get inside my body into some weird something or other, or hang around as this unfinished grief or whatever it was. Now, that is of course, when I started to show up on the front lines of my own healing and recovery, there was a heck of a lot of backlog that I had to attend to, a ton of rage and anger and sadness and terror. And it's been a lifelong process of helping to invite and call forth all those vulnerable places that really had no support to be attended to in my younger years. But as things arose in my adulthood, it was like, bring it on. I want to be as present as I can with this, because I know that's the most efficient pathway. And the other piece is, I really have no preference. I truly actually have no preference between what I might call my pleasure or my pain. Because to me, what's interesting are the sensations of my own aliveness. And I love my tears. I love them. And I love what being able to be in them and share them and express them alone or with another or in front of a whole room full of people. What, like you said, that can catalyze. And I don't do it to catalyze it. Right. It's just, I'm home and being real in this moment. And real to me is magnificent. So I also do know that by the deeper down I go, and the more I can unearth the root of my heart, the more I can rise and experience the wings of my heart. And I do know that on the other side, of grief is extraordinary joy. And on the other side of my anger and my indignation and my outrage about what is not okay is also this field of compassion that is not a cheap compassion. It's a hard-earned one through really feeling the injustice and what is out of integrity, and being so present with it that my heart opens and I go, oh my goodness, this is what has caused this. This is what is motivating this behavior in whatever the situation is, whether it's personal or global, and everything in between. So it took me a long time to share parts of my story. I felt that, not that there were secrets, but that there was so much need in front of me to listen and hold space for other people's story. And I had this incredible friend called the dance, which has held me through everything, really, and been there. You know, teachers come and go, lovers come and go, children grow up. You know, girlfriends' lives change, stuff happens, and there's always been this place that I could go to, and of course the dance for me is much more than just the movement, although it's absolutely the movement, but it's the creative process, and it's prayer, and it's stillness as much as it's motion. So, but practically and literally, the dance has been a place where I have taken my most, ravaged, ripped open, not so pretty to hang out with or look at self. And it's also the place where, the most radiant and the most expansive and inclusive part of myself gets to hang out also, or be accessed and expressed. And as you and I both know, eventually it's not even about the dance practice or the yoga practice anymore. It's really about this moment, or the hard moments in relationship, or, hard phone calls and hard dynamics with the world, with students, with children, with whatever it is.
That's so true. I was thinking as you were expressing how beautiful that was when you just spoke, how these things come and go. And yet that one constant is that relationship with the Shakti, if you will, right? That deep life pulsing presence in us that is so dynamically creative when we engage her, when we give her respect, when we give her honor, when we have this entanglement with her, when we have this love affair with her. I just love that, because even in the moment of passing, at least according to the traditions I study, we go with her. We go with her, and the dance continues somewhere else, and in a different way, in a different elemental way, perhaps. I have a real curiosity around and I don't know, I've taken some 5 rhythms classes, really, really enjoyed them. Was a modern dancer prior to all my yoga. And what I do know, and I would love for you to comment on, is this interplay, because my understanding, and as the more I contemplate this, that the rise of feminine consciousness, it's not new to the planet. She's just been hiding in nature. She's been hiding in the ethers. She has, until she's respected, she won't fully incarnate. And yet, the masculine is has played a role for us, right? And to negate something completely, I think, is really unhealthy. So I know from my yoga practice that there are days when I can go back to Ashtanga Vinyasa and really enjoy it, because the form, which I'm a rebellious one, right? Form, I can be like, not going there now, right? Like, too restrictive. But in that, when I have gone back and I've been respectful to the form, what I have realized when then at the end of the practice is this expansive nature of the Shakti is just, it's just enormous in the body. So the point being that even within alignment in yoga, there's a great amount of Shakti that is being built inside the body. And yet there are times when I'm like, I just want to like throw that all out, and I just want to move however I want to move. And that seems very, sort of organic and non-linear, right? And yet I'm imagining with those, in my experience of the 5 rhythms, which I know you have developed further your work, but that there is this masculine within the feminine within the masculine, that there's this sort of like Fred and Ginger thing going on, right? Like, sometimes she's leading the way and sometimes he's leading the way, and it's sort of this interchange. And I would love for you to comment, because I think there's a misunderstanding right now as well, in that, well, for example, in the yoga world, perhaps there's a necessary expression going on where the form has been sort of thrown out, and there's loud music in classes, and there's heat turning up, and there's, I'm sort of like, whoa, what's going on? Where did the form go? And yet, perhaps we have needed as a culture to kind of let that go a bit and just experience pure expression or pure freedom. And yet, I have this sort of wondering or inquiry around, so if yoga is going Burning Man, or if our expression is going so, out there, like, what if we forget to come home? What if we forget that our kids might need attending to? Or do you get what I'm saying? Like, I'm wondering about
a lot of things.
Yeah.
I can jump off here.
Yeah, I would love it.
Yeah. I think the first thing is I didn't take the 5 rhythms further. I have complemented them with, just out of just respect for the lineage that I come from, and Gabrielle Roth's beautiful maps. They have transformed me, and I have transformed with them, and I bring them forth in a way that is actually just what you're talking about. There's so much discipline in my relationship with these 5 rhythms.
Yes.
And even in how I very meticulously over 3 decades have brought them forth in our community. And without that foundation, for me, all the expression has no container, has no root, and ultimately really has no consciousness, or doesn't have its full potential of consciousness. Mm. And so to me, there's this constant interplay. Steiner talked about this, between form and freedom.
Yeah.
And the disciple is discipline. And I am deeply schooled in this lineage and other lineages that have woven together, have inseminated, impregnated each other, and out of that something new has been born. But I am I'm very focused on always back to the ground, always back to the simple practices. Mm. And to let those simple practices become doorways to, endless landscapes, vast landscapes. And I always say to people, it's like, why would I ever need to do drugs? Why would I ever need to utilize outside anything? I am so far from bored with what this basic dance practice can offer to me in terms of a key to the limitless nature of our human consciousness. So that's the long and short of it. And I could say more, but yes, we need each other, form and freedom. And if I did not spend years layering in and accessing through my body what the different emotions are, how they show up and move through my body, I could never just, when I'm sad, cry because I was so shut down, or when I'm angry, have productive expression of that and actually be able to access what the heck that anger is telling me about. So to me, the practices that really give room for the body, the heart, the mind, the soul, and the spirit are ones worthy of staying with. Practices that fragment that, to me, turn on the music, break out of the, break out, and I think it's a dance. And I say that, not as a cliche, but there are times in my life, it's like, forget every practice. Forget even practicing, forget it. I'm on something else is happening. And for us to be respectful, and like you so beautifully spoke about, listening. And when guidance comes, to follow it. Eat chocolate, don't eat chocolate. No preference, It's okay to be eating this at this time. It's not okay to eat that for the next X number of years or whatever it is, and to just be respectful of this whisper that the universe is constantly offering us through our conversations, or through something in nature, or through our own inner waking up in the night, or our writing, or creative process, whatever it is, through our children. But to really follow that, and to me, that is the new feminine. It is to honor that, to listen to it, to respect it, to follow it, and to be willing to show up and meet it. And that's that marriage. And I've had the feminine, that muse, speak to me, say, go get a doctorate degree, Melissa. Ding. Okay. Go build this work on a number of different continents. Okay. Or go home and stay home with the kids for the next month, because everybody needs to be quiet and at home and having the most ordinary life. And I'm going to just say one last thing that you mentioned that I feel so strongly about. Having single parented for decades, we need to stay home with our children. We need to be present with what we have created. And if that's, we're raising a family, or we've got a yoga school, or we, have bills to be paid, and there's people who are sick in our world, that we're in our family, that we're attending, whatever it is. None of this is at the expense of that. In fact, that ordinary is what really allows us to integrate what comes to us from the extraordinary in ways that make sense in this world at this time. And I just so believe, as I know you do too, in expansion and contraction, and there is nowhere to go if we've got children, partners, clients that we're attending to. We can't, there's nowhere to go without our circle and the people we're responsible to.
It's a really, really, really important point, and I want to honor you for the work you're doing, I know, in this community and in Africa as well, with youth, because, I would love for you to speak to that, because what do you see that our youth need right now?
Yeah, well, I'm working with young people really around the planet, and they're all growing up, so it's not just youth anymore, but young people are needing us to grow up. First and foremost, we cannot be clear mirrors and inspired role models if our lives have vast areas of incongruencies. So parenting or mentoring, but I'll speak to parenting right now, as you know, is an invitation to rework anything unresolved in our own biographies, so that when our daughters or our sons are in puberty, we have the opportunity to deal and meet and embrace and take a close look at our own pubescent selves and what happened and what didn't happen during that time. And without judgment, with so much kindness, with so much curiosity, to befriend those unresolved parts of ourselves allows us to be upright role models and really conscious mentors for our children and our children's peers. So that's one piece. Mm-hmm. Our children are also needing our faith and our fullness in their capacity to grow up, their capacity to make it through what I call the narrow passageways of their own lives, and our faith in these times and in humanity's capacity to meet the horrific and overwhelming challenges that we're all looking at. And I remember after 9/11 happened in our country, my daughter, who was I think in second grade at the time, just very matter-of-factly said, the world's coming to an end. Now, nobody had said that to her. Nobody. We were really mindful about not bringing that overtly forward, but she's a little psychic being and a child, and she was feeling it. And I just remember walking out the back door. I had my arms laden with bulbs that I had gotten. I said, you know what? Let's go plant bulbs, because spring is just around the corner. Of course, it was 6 months away, but I had to give her that sense of, we're putting these in the ground because I believe completely in the renewal. I believe completely in a future filled with beauty that we are going to help tend. Now, did I totally know we were going to make it through? Of course not. But I had to continue to nourish that part of me that is full of faith and believes in the human capacity for resilience, while knowing that the earth has that the body has a limit, and we don't know if we've crossed it. So our children need that from us. They also need to be part of helping to restore and regenerate life on this planet at this time, and in ways that are developmentally appropriate for them. Treating our young ones, little ones, like they're teenagers is not cool. Let them be children. But treating our teenagers like sitting in a classroom is what they really need is also not cool. They need to get their hands in the problem solving and in the answers to the questions that we're all hosting right now. So, there comes movement again. Let's get our young people using their bodies, not just in practices of yoga or dance or martial arts, but also in literally engaging their will and planting gardens and building fences and doing the hard work that needs to happen. So our children need other things. They need to see us building bridges, and that's the name of my not-for-profit. And I'm doing a lot of bridge working. I started off my undergraduate degree in civil engineering, and I was like, yes. And I was on track, but just a couple degrees off. It was always about building bridges. And I recently did some work in South Africa with women of all ages and coming from really diverse backgrounds, incredibly different socioeconomic, religion, race, the whole thing. And they were and a lot of young people and a lot of older women and black, white, colored, everything. And they were so relieved to be in the room together, and they had never had that opportunity. So what do our young people need to see? They need to see that we are crossing the line, and not just in our lip service, but actually in how we're spending our time, how we're spending our money. And, Boulder, good old Boulder, we're saturated. People want to know, oh, there's not room for me to be a dance teacher in this town. Take it 5 minutes outside of town. There are so many young people. There are so many people in need of the resources that we have amongst us. So for me, that bridging, they need to know that we are going to use the social technologies that we have to build connections, because they get that we're all here together. And all you need is one of your kids dating somebody from another culture or another whole world, and you start to get it. So should I say anything more? I'd like to say one more thing about what our young people need. I mean, it's not terribly different than what we need. Anyway.
Right.
Not only do we need to be able, there's two more things I want to say. They do need us to hold space for the very hard work of their own inner excavations to happen, their own repair work around the horrific traumas that our young people have had, the social or environmental toxins that they've faced. They also need for us to hold space for them to do the normal developmental stuff of who am I? And I'm thinking now of youth, who am I as a creative being, a sexual being? And they need places where they can worship, where they can celebrate, where they can have some sense of, it's not just this nightmare on the planet. There is this benevolent, gracious, loving, vast universe that they're part of, and they need to be able to access that without drugs. And that's, for me, the dance, there is no better pathway for that for young people. And nature and the wilderness, where they can be wild and expansive and feel something bigger than themselves that is loving and whole. And that breeds hope deeply, and also gives them some sense of relief, because they want to get out of the box too, and need to remember who they really are, not just what test scores tell them that they are.
Right. This is bringing me to where my son is right now. He's 18. He's graduating this year, and he's on his 2-week senior project, and he's in Detroit.
Okay, right.
And it is so perfect, because this is the Boulder Boheme kid, and he's like, Mom, you wouldn't believe it. Two blocks away, they have burned down all the houses. And I don't know how familiar we are of what's happened in Detroit, but the car industry went defunct, and the entire town is really suffering. And he said, but what was so cool about this is sort of the ashes to wings, right? That these houses were abandoned. Many of them burned down from, arsonery. But there's a street in Detroit, maybe 2 streets, I think he said 2 blocks, that people have created art projects. All these houses are art projects. And he was so excited to show me this. He was like, you wouldn't believe the decay in this town, but the creativity that these people have and the urban farming that's going on is outstanding. So, I think that when I see the devastation, I also see humanity's power to collaborate, to create from the depths of our suffering is the possibility of real creation. And it really struck me. I've Skyped with him a couple times, and I'm like, wow, this is an amazing experience for him right now, to have to see something he's never seen before in this way. So I love what you have to offer, and I think hope is something that this project for me came out of. It came out of the Dalai Lama's 2009 quote that Western women would lead the way to healing the planet, that they would do that through their hearts, they would do that through compassion, they would do that through generosity and creativity. And I think that's what you're saying, is that we have to get creative when it's looking grim, and that we don't know if we've passed that threshold. I believe that we're at a time in history where we have the ability to bring more and more light to the planet, but we have to do that consciously. Yeah. So I know we're coming to this hour here, but I did want to ask you, because I think it's an important part of your work that I have wanted to engage in myself, is this Shakti immersion that you do around I want to say the major phases of a woman's life, from childhood to puberty, to that full blossom, to the crone, to the wise woman, to the wherever we go, right? To the next, as my teacher says, to the explosion into the light. I would love to know why you do that. Why do you take us on that journey?
I was recently
Mm. Mm.
I was recently working in Uganda with some women in their 20s, refugees from Rwanda and the Congo and Sudan in particular. And these were some of the finest elders I've been around in my life. These young women knew death and resilience, and their spiritual consciousness and their devotion to serving all of life in a way that I rarely meet. Now, I don't often meet people like these young people. And they knew very little about themselves as maidens. They knew very little about what was happening in their bodies as their menstruation flow was coming through on a monthly basis. And I had the great fortune of working very deeply with them around some of the stitching together of the unfamiliar parts of their natural development as human beings and in female bodies, in particular as women. And I think about our women here in the West and the things that we know so much about, but we actually don't really know that much about. The deeper, incredible mysteries and gifts of what is happening in the blood mysteries of our own bodies, and what happens when our souls begin to birth and our breasts begin to bud and our eggs begin to be available for fertilization. Our fertility comes on deck.
Mm.
You know, we're just like really teaching our children a certain level around this stuff, but we're really not opening up the full majesty of what it is to be a woman. And for me, it all really started. I was lost at sea, and I did not have a rudder, and I did not have older women who I could turn to for answering the simple questions of like, how do I handle my own body, and how do I raise my children, and what is going on? And so I had to awaken. I had to access a certain consciousness within myself. And I always used to say to the moms when I would work with the new moms, the pregnant women, forget about, and bless Dr. Spock, but forget about Dr. Spock. The answers to the questions that we're hosting right now are not going to be found in books. We as women are this vast reservoir of ever evolving and emerging intelligence, and we have access to it. Get to it. So it's really in the spirit of all of that that I have grown, the work that I've grown, and realizing that when I get a group of moms together, so many of them have not completed their own grieving around what happened for them when they started to cycle, or the loss of their virginity. And some of them don't even know what happened in terms of this whole thing that's happening in their bodies, gestating and growing new life. So there's a whole piece around repair. There's also a whole piece around education and initiation. How many women, when they started to recede in their bleeding, no one said, you know, you're becoming something very new. And rather than being tossed aside because they were becoming menopausal women, they were being celebrated as this awakening in queen consciousness, and this fact that they bring something that we all really need from the feminine right now. I mean, you're carrying that. I'm right there in my development too. And so for me, it was really about just helping to reweave the fabric of what it is to be a woman from conception all the way through to that last breath. and to that expansion into that unified consciousness. And actually, even that too is included in the conversation, because our ancestors and all of our friends of spirit are right here working with us at every moment. So it's just nothing too fancy about it or new. It's what women have done in community through all time. And I've just realized we kind of lost touch with that everywhere. And I found this yummy way of doing it. And, you know, it's a life practice. For me, that's the life practice, is to continue to decode, like I said, the majesty and the mystery of what it is to be a woman throughout all her cycles.
Oh, it's so beautiful. There's so many beautiful myths in the Hindu tradition too that mirror that, you know, that whole cycle. And you know, as a daughter, I have a daughter who just turned 13, as you know, and you know, I made a big sort of to-do about doing a little ritual with her when she started her cycle. She was terribly embarrassed, but it was just her aunties and her grandmother and myself and a big beautiful basket. And I just knew that I wanted that for her. I wanted her to know that I was here and that I had my own experiences. We all told her about our own experiences of getting our cycle, where we were, what happened, and you know. And she was very red and blushed, but I knew that I had to do this. And,
Absolutely.
And I know there's more work, and I'm so grateful to you for holding this midwife position that you hold, because I get teary, because if you didn't do it, I don't know who would be doing it. I know that other women are doing this kind of work, but we need more women doing this kind of work. We need to take responsibility for the children that are coming into womanhood. And then, of course, you know, I think it's incredible that you've had elders, because we don't have a lot of elders in our communities, you know, that can walk us through these stages. And you are holding that spark and that hope for, I think, our future. So I'm in awe of your work.
Thank you, sweetie. You know, two things I want to say. One is, recently I had some elders who I really do not call youngers elders. I call elders who have not only awakened consciousness. I know there's some confusion collectively. I don't hear that in you, but I hear it in some of the youngers. Although these young people in Uganda had elder consciousness, I don't see them as elders. I see those who have the consciousness and have put their miles on their moccasins.
Yes.
Because there is something to be said for people who've just navigated life decade after decade, and they really truly do need to be honored and listened to and celebrated and played with, you know. And I had some really badass elders in a recent workshop, and they were just hysterically funny, and everything was sacred and nothing was sacred. And we need that trickster kind of I'm over it, I'm over you, I'm over the whole thing perspective, you know. So I just want to honor those who really put in their time. And also just to say, I suspect our time is nearly up. Although you and I, hopefully our time will be a long conversation.
Yes.
Truly, Jeanie. Yes. I just want to say that this work is not glamorous work. And as you know, I recently worked with a group of young people. And when I drove away, I was like, wow, who would do what you just did, Melissa? Because the kids do push back, and even the parents get scared. And I've had kids, you know, just roll their eyes in every direction, and then 5 years, 8 years later come and say, we hated it, and thank you so much, because it gave us a picture of something that we weren't carrying, that just was the antidote to what was coming from every other direction. And with all this technology. So I just want to say this is the revolution, and bless you for doing that for your daughter and figuring that out. And that will live in her soul, and that will awaken something in her and protect something forever. So, yes.
Yeah, and I hear you. I hear you around what you're saying around it's not easy. And I also hear that seed gets planted. And that is what we need. We need that seed to be planted, because then it can blossom however long it takes. Whatever we have to navigate out here, that's inside. Yeah. Yeah, Melissa, thank you so much. I know we have more to talk about, and I know I have more to explore with you, and I'm just grateful that you could come and share with all these women. I think that your work is really important right now, and this collective voice was made brighter by your contribution.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that this kindness that we're...
No worries.
It's time to go. But I just want to say to all the women, the spirit of kindness, the spirit of curiosity, and full patience and faith is what allows us to begin to come home into these bodies. And the greatest revolution is to unplug the messages, the false whisperers that are coming in and saying we're not enough, we're too much, we're this, that, or the other, but to really, really generate this attitude of reverence and curiosity and kindness towards what is, and from there we awaken and blossom.
That was gorgeous.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bless you.
So much love. Yeah.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.